and it ends by invoking the hope and entreaty of freedom, the liberation of the Eginites, the island people of Egina. It starts with a tribute to invocation of a tribute to a god, Hesychia. Hesychia is the god of concord, in particular concord in the family, and then extends to the concord of the city, civil concord, civil peace, quiet, concord. So peace and war are there at the first lines. Then we turn, quite traditionally for Pindar, to the praise of Egina, the island of the victor and his family, the city, the expected celebration of the victory. We then turn to myth. I won't go into the details of the myth here, but the myth is very much about virtue and the precariousness of virtue, how difficult it is for virtue to arise, and once it arises, to persist. It also, the myth also contains an image of the poet himself as a seer, as somebody who is himself a seer and who draws on legendary dead seers in a kind of prayer. This prayer is an entreaty, a prayer of thanksgiving to Apollo, who Brendan was characterizing a moment ago. After this myth and the conception of the poet himself, the prayer to Apollo, we have a sudden and very stark scrutiny. That's what it seems to me to be a scrutiny of the victor's character, insofar as he's a victor. And far from getting this wonderfully ideal picture that Brendan painted, the victor is scrutinized in somewhat critical terms. And we also have something that I think never happens anywhere else in Pindar, a mention and a kind of that we must think not only of the victors but also of the losers. And before that's just before the poem ends with the loss of hope and a wonderful image of this ephemeral nature of man, which we shall hear in a moment. A sudden loss of hope. This is typical of Pindar, a pendulum swing from elation to depression and back again. But loss of hope can't be the end of the poem. The last lines are kind of an attempt to restore this hope by evoking the image, the prospect of future freedom. Φιλόφρονη ησυχία, δίκασο μεγιστόπολη θύγατε, βουλάντε και πολέμων έχεις ακλαΐδας υπερτάτας, πυθιόνικον τιμάν αριστομένη δέκε. Τι γάρτο μάλθακον έρξετε και παθή νομός επίστασε, καιρός συνατρική. Τι δε, οπόταν της σαμήλιχον καρδία κότον ελελάσει, τραχία δυσμενέων επαντιάξασα κράτη τη θύση βρυνεν άνθρωπο. Εν το λίγο βρωτών το τέρπινον αύξεται, ούτω δε και πίτνη χαμέ από τρόπο γνώμας εσυσμένων, επάμενοι, τι δε της, τι νου της, σκιάσεων άρανθρωπος. Αλλά όταν έγλα διόσδοτος έλθει, λαμπρών φέγγος έπεσιν ανδρών και μίληχος αιών. Έγινα φύλλα μάται, ελευθέρος στόλο πόλη τάλδεκος κόμιζε, δι και κρέον τη συνερκό, πιλέτε και αγαθότε λαμώνει, συγκερθεί. Hesychia, kind goddess of peace, daughter of justice and lady of the greatness of cities, you who hold the high keys of wars and of councils, accept for Aristomenes this train of Pythian victory. For you understand in strict measure of season deeds of gentleness and their experience likewise. And you, when one fixes anger without pity fast in his heart, are stern to encounter the strength of the hateful ones, and sink pride in the village. Porphyrion understood you not, when wantonly he vexed you. Gain is sweet, if one carry it from the house of him who gives in goodwill. But violence and high wanton fail at the last. Typhon the Cilician, the 100-headed, avoided not this, nor yet the king of the giants. They were smitten down by the thunderbolt and the bow of Apollo, who now in mood of kindness has received Xenakes' son, home from Hera and garlanded with leaves of Parnassus and with song in the Dorian strain. This island, that in its city's righteousness has touched the famed valors of the Alcide, has not fallen away from the graces. She keeps glory perfect from the beginning, and is son of many, for her shaping of heroes that surpassed in excellence of games, and in the speed of their fighting also. These things shine in her men likewise. In my haste I cannot lay leisure of long-drawn speech on the lyre and the soft singing, lest surf feet come to vex. Let your own need, my child, and your younger splendors run the path at my feet, made a thing of speed by my fashion. For at wrestling you go the way of your mother's brethren, nor shame Theognetus at Olympia, nor Clitomachus' victory of tough limbs at Isthmus. Prospering the city of the Medilive, you wear the saying Icleus' son spoke darkly once, as he watched the young men enduring the spears in the 7 gates of Thebes, when the latter born came again to Argos a second journey. Thus he spoke in their striving. The heritage of valor from their fathers shines through in the son's blood. I gaze in wonder and see plain Alcmaeus steering the spangled snake on his bright shield, foremost in the gates of Cadmus. And he that flinched in that first disaster, the hero Adrastus, now goes compassed by message of Albion more favorably. Yet in his own house otherwise shall he fare. Alone, out of the Danaan host, he shall gather the ashes of his son perished, and by the gods' chance shall come home with the rest of his people stillness to the wide streets of the city of Athens. Thus the voice of Amphiaraos. And I also take joy to cast a garland on Alcmaeon and drench him in song. He's my neighbor and the keeper of my possessions. He met me in the way as I went to the singing center stone of the earth, and with the sooth that is his by blood made prophecy. But you, archer of the far-cast, Lord of the famed temple where all gather in the deep folds of Python, have granted this boy delight that is highest, and aforetime a gift to fold in the arms, you brought him home in triumph of your own 5 contests. My Lord, I pray you that of my heart's will I look on each thing in my course, even as you look also. Justice herself stands over the sweet singing and celebration. But I ask, Xenakis, the gods gaze unresentful upon your fortunes. For if one, even without long-drawn labours, compass splendors, to many he seems as a wise man among fools, to crown his life with device and straight counsels. Yet this lies not with men. God's luck is the giver, that casts one man now aloft and yet another beneath his hand. Come back to measure. You have won your own prize at Megara, and in the recess of Marathon, and with 3 successes, Aristomenes, you have won at home the games of Hero. And above 4 bodies you threw your weight and your rage. To these lads was ordained at the Pythiad no delightful bonfairy, nor, as they came to their mothers, did laughter break sweetly about them, to stir delight. Down back ways, back alleys, avoiding mockers, they skulk, all stricken with their sad fortune. But he that has won some new splendour in high pride of hope rides the air on the wings of this his man's strength, and keeps desire beyond his wealth. In brief space, mortal's delight is exalted, and thus again it drops to the ground, shaken by a backward doom. We are the things of the dead. What are we? What are we not? The shadow of a dream is man no more. But when the brightness comes and God gives it, there is a shining of light on men, and their life is sweet. Aegina, dear mother, bring this city to haven in free guise, by Zeus's aid and strong Archias, Peleus and godly Telamon aiding, and with Achilles.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. We're going to have a short break now for a cup of tea.
Okay, we're going to the cup of tea, and the bathrooms, just a little bit of housekeeping. The bathrooms are upstairs on the top of the landing too, and a third one downstairs as well. And tea and coffee will be ready in a few moments, and a few little bits and pieces. So just bear with us and we get ourselves set up. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Now, you take those back. If you like to pass them. Oh, sorry, keep it here, take them. Yeah, but I walk in. Now, Maureen, would you like tea or coffee? Tea. Two teas. Yeah, grab here. Now, pass these up actually, and we send you some days or tea and coffee here. No, I'll pour the tea. What do you think? Yeah. Two ladies here to order tea. You have not. The next one probably.
We're grand, just we get your cup of tea, we're grand with plenty of helpers, but it's just tea or coffee for you, dear.
Coffee, right.
Tea. Just make your way down, will you? Anyone for coffee?
Take that one off me and just get your coffee there.
Somebody give a coffee, yeah.
Yes,
Do you want to bring them over? Can you get to it? Take a few ones at the other side.
I want to take them too,
She can get more again. Make a start.
You want to pass them up?
No.
I didn't see the brand.
No, that's it. Yeah, go on. Yeah, we got the toilets for you.
Yeah, plenty of buns, plenty of everything. It's just, please don't be too shy, anybody. Make your way down to the table here. Tea and coffee here. Grab.
You sure, yeah?
Grab tea and coffee.
I'll get the ones there in a second.
Alright, you want them out?
I passed them back.
Yeah, right. She said, she wanted. I'm sure that she's doing this great. It's always like these.
Please make your way down and don't be shy. Help yourselves here. Come on down.
The chief board there.
Just give it a go.
I give a cup to Mary. I think that's
No one got to get it.
Oh, is she? Okay, right, you're all right. Yeah, that girl.
Or in the other behind it.
I'm fine. Are you alright?
Chris Burns, I don't have just the same.
Lucy, I know where she
So clear and how many runs did you get? Many runs?
Just two now, Maria. Thank you. Go ahead, you're all
Can I?
across the river.
We'll start again in about 3 minutes.
Oh yes, and she has to get up. She needs to be before 7 to get them ready. So we just so thanks for getting
start at the second part of our event. And I'm going to reintroduce Philip Casey, the novelist Wexford, that we're based on that, and many other distinctions.
I can't say how delighted I am being here today, and thank you first of all to the Park family and to Mr. Tourism for having me along with Rowan and the gang. And in case you think that being so delighted is an empty formula, the reason I'm so delighted is that for the past several years I've been immersed in, among other things, Irish mythology and Irish stories. And I'm not a scholar, I'm just a writer who also knows this is where that has led me. But, as Ronan mentioned earlier, I was deeply immersed in this story when he came in and told me about Telltale. I was literally reading about Telltale. Again, the second time, I was just going over to the end of the early chapters. I think that I was coming up here to read. I've been like a child in a sweet shop for the past 2 weeks. So I believe there's native speakers of Irish in the audience, so that's making me a little bit nervous. But I want to just very briefly explain the background to this what I'm going to read. The metrical Dinhiankis is Dinhiankis, as you all probably know, was the lower of the place. Now, a lot of these stories predate Christianity, although they were written down by Christian monks. And so some of the places mentioned in them the names don't exist anymore. But Teltown does. And I just think that is absolutely marvellous. A brief history of how this metrical Dinhiankis came to be in Dinhiankis. I think there are a couple of different pronunciations of it. This was compiled by Edward Gwynn of the Royal Irish Academy of Lectures series, and he compiled and translated the stories, the poems rather, somewhere between 1905 and 1914, I think. And this particular book, book 4, was published in 1924, at least this edition, the hardest biggest. We took it from, mainly from this section. There's an earlier section from the Book of Leinster, which was patronized by MacMurrough, Dermot MacMurrough, who brought the Romans to Ireland, so that was 12th century or so. The Book of Ballymote was, I think, of the 14th century, and patronized by the MacDonagh chieftain in Sligo. It was later bought for 146 cows by Anthony O'Donnell, and it was then in the chaos of the 17th century it was lost, and then found by one of the wild geese who had returned home from the continent and became an antiquarian. O'Gorman was his name, and he retrieved it and donated it to the Royal Irish Academy, where it lay until Edward Gwynn revealed it to us, those of us who cannot speak Middle Irish. Now, so that's the background to it. There are one or two things in. It's a very long poem, but seeing as we are where we are, I think it's worth reading the whole thing. I think you won't be too bored. There's a number of place names, some of which we know, some of which we don't, that are mentioned. The Feni, of course, were the old land-owning class prior to the invasion that later applied to the Gaelic landowning class, as opposed to the lower classes of the slaves. So Ronan, I just should say that I've read this about a dozen times, so I think I know it fairly well, but if I stumbled a little bit, it's because I printed it off my computer and really so bear with me if I do that. But Ronan is going to read a couple of verses, the opening verses, in Old Irish, and then I'm going to proceed with the English translation.
I have to say I did a crash course in Old Irish pronunciation yesterday.